The archive grows with every true tale you send. Comment your country. Comment your fear. Welcome back to Silent Archives. Number 1. A dog's sense. I had a dog once that was super loyal and loving and would always come running to me when I called and would almost crash into me whenever I had treats for him. One day, sitting in the living room, all of his hairs stood up on his back, and he was just staring over my should, growling and showing his teeth. No matter what I would do to try to get him to come to me, he would never break his stare at that one spot, and just kept growling. I eventually carried him out of the room because it was freaking me and my roommates out so bad. Number 2. Animals can sense something we can't. Growing up, there was an extra room upstairs in our house we used as an office. It had a closet with one of those tiny attic access doors on the side. We'd sometimes all be downstairs watching TV, and we'd hear a creaking sound moving toward that room. The room was next to mine, and sometimes I'd find the closet door open with the light on, and the little door to the attic cracked open. There was a spot on the wall that our declawed cat would always attack. There was missing paint from the cat attacks. All of that was creepy, but the night the dog, who never came upstairs without my dad, started barking in the hallway by my room toward the office, was the worst. She barked and growled for a bit. Then she started backing off into my room, while looking up as if staring at the face of a person coming toward her. She backed into my room, then squealed like she'd been stepped on, and ran into the far corner from my door, and put her nose and eyes into the corner, and whimpered. I picked her up and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. That was 14 years ago, and I'm still freaked out by it. Get exclusively creepy TC stories by liking Creepy Catalog here. Number 3. Covered in blood. When I was 15, my stepfather got stabbed right in front of me. There was an altercation in the middle of our street at 2 a.m. that woke our whole house up. My stepfather and my uncle were still up drinking and went outside to see what was going on. There was a young man kicking the shit out of one of our older neighbors, an alcoholic gentleman who lived a few houses down from us. Found out afterward, the young man was dating the older man's daughter. My stepfather and uncle went out to break it up, and in the commotion, my stepfather was stabbed by the guy. He stumbled back onto the porch and fell, and I tried to catch him. His blood smeared down the front of my shirt. The younger guy took off, and we called 911. We were in the hospital until the early morning. When me and my mom got home, there was a message on our answering machine. It was a friend of mine from school, crying and apologizing for calling in the middle of the night. But she had just had a dream that there was screaming and a fight, and I was covered in blood. She begged me to call her back. The timestamp on the message was the same time as the stabbing. This is in the late 80s, before computers and even cell phones, really. I lived on the other side of town from her. There was no way she could have known what had happened. Number 4. Saw it in a dream. My grandfather is Algerian and was a soldier during the Algerian War. During the war, he took my grandma and my mom to France. He was often hanging around in bars around bad guys. Anyway, one night my mom, who was 12 at the time, wakes up in the middle of the night, choking. She had difficulties to breathe. After a few seconds, she went to my grandma crying and begging for help, screaming, "Dad has been killed, he is in danger." My grandma Grandma sent my mom back to sleep. The next day, they got a call from the hospital. My grandfather got into a fight and headbutted a guy in the mouth. He still has the guy's teeth scar on his forehead. The guy cut his throat open later that night. Somehow my grandfather survived and still has the scar from the knife. Number 5. These things actually happen. When I was 6, 28 years ago, my mom and dad took me and my younger sister to an MLB game, leaving my grandmother to babysit my youngest sister. When we got back, my grandmother told my folks that 2 guys had come by the house with photography equipment and asked whether a young girl with red curly hair lived there, and that they had spotted her, and that she would be a great child model for some advertising work they were doing. When my grandmother said she wasn't home, they said they would come back another time. My grandmother and mom didn't think much about it, but my dad said, "Something's not right here," and called the police. About 15 minutes later, several FBI agents showed up and began conducting interviews with my grandmother and my parents, while I ran around and showed the agents my Matchbox police helicopter. Turns out, we had been targeted by a child theft ring. The photographers would take a bunch of photos and wait until the toddler threw a tantrum, and the photographers would then ask the mother to go grab a toy to keep the child entertained. While the mother was out of the room, they would grab the child and bolt, leaving everything else behind. The FBI told my folks that my sister had already been sold and would have been out of the country within 24 hours if they got her. We were advised to change preschools and other aspects of our daily routine. It still gives me the chills to think about what could have happened to her. Needless to say, Mom became pretty overprotective. It was a few years before she even trusted us with a babysitter. Number 6. Be careful of Craigslist ads. A guy made a Craigslist posting saying he was a talent scout and ran an agency. He got the interest of a father, grandfather, and his granddaughter. This guy's specialty was casting families under the guise that he was looking to produce a film and needed actors. Not too long ago, the grandfather and his granddaughter went to meet this guy up at the house. They actually drove by 2 hours early to check out the house before going to it. There was a for sale sign outside the house, and it appeared vacant. The family drove by later at the agreed time of meeting in the morning, and were greeted at the door by a man in a suit. He tried to convince the little girl to come inside many times. The grandfather got a bad feeling and left. Turns out, in an unrelated sting, the police caught this guy for child porn charges. He had 10 counts of child porn, and his home was raided. The father-grandfather, around the same time, reported this incident to the police. When the police found this guy, he had a bag with him. In it was a knife, zip ties, dirty toys, and he even had plastic sheeting. He was going to pretty much finish the grandfather, then fully finish the child. His plan was to get this all on film. The camera was set up and ready to go. Luckily, the father and grandfather had a gut feeling something was off and reported the incident. This guy happened to be a kid I pretty much grew up knowing for about 15 years. He was even my brother's roommate for a while. He was always very creepy, and I couldn't never pinpoint why exactly. I felt my stomach drop reading this news. This guy has been inside my home, went to parties I had, my birthday party. I have had multiple conversations with him. Luckily, he won't be getting out of jail anytime soon. News story for further clarification. Number 7. Intuition. When my mom, a youngin', her and her mother lived in a trailer in the backyard of a family member's house. My mom was about 12 at the time that the man in the neighboring house started to stare at her from time to time. She got a creepy vibe from him, but figured it was just a harmless, lonely guy. One night, when my mom was alone, she heard something on the roof of their trailer. Then she heard what sounded like footsteps slowly walking along the metal rooftop. Given they were dirt poor at the time, they did not have a phone, so she eventually ran out of the trailer and into the house without looking on the roof. When her uncle went outside to investigate, nothing was on the roof. A few weeks went by with no incidents, and my mom figured she must have been overly scared of nothing. More fucked up stuff would randomly happen, but only when she was alone, and it was always spaced out a week or two, if I remember correctly. This occurred over maybe a couple months before it stopped completely. Months go by without any weird instances at all, until one night my mom wakes up to the trailer unbelievably hot. She could feel the heater on full blast. She got out of bed and was about to go to the control for the trailer's heater, but she was overcome with a bad feeling and decided to just go into the house. The uncle went out to the trailer and noticed that the lock on the door was broken or messed with, and he looked inside quickly, but didn't see anything. His wife made him call the police, and when they came out, they searched the trailer and found one of the kitchen knives behind a chair next to the heating controller. They suspected that the neighbor went into the trailer, turned the heat up, and crouched behind the chair, waiting for my mom to come by. And then, who knows? It's been a long time since I heard the story, but from what I remember, the cops questioned the neighbor, but really couldn't do anything about it. Luckily, my mom and grandmother were able to move out of that town right after that. My mom told me that about 5 or something years later, she was visiting other family who lived in a nearby town, and she saw the neighbor at the grocery store, and she bolted out before he saw her. Share your story below. You're not alone. Subscribe to Silent Archives and turn on notifications. We have more stories waiting, ones we haven't dared to tell yet. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and above all, stay brave.